Now, no one can dispute that Snake Eater is one of the coolest games ever, and the CQC system works really well for the gameplay. However, today I'm not making a video about Snake Eater and how it plays. I'm making a video about Snake's specific brand of CQC, specifically the whole idea of the knife gun.
Snake, try to remember some of the basics of CQC.
And I want to talk about why it's a bad idea. And then we'll go into some games that do this kind of stuff a lot better. So I'm Pliskin, let's hop right on into it. So first thing I want to point out is that the gun I'm using, or the toy I'm using, and the training knife I'm using are not quite up to Snake's standards in regards for what he's doing with his pistol. See, he shaves down the grip of his weapon and has a much smaller knife better suited for what he's doing when he puts them together. Now, his whole rationale behind doing this is to have a stable grip while you're shooting, to make sure you can stay accurate, but still be able to switch to your knife quickly if you need to. Now, there are quite a few issues with this. Now, while if this was made exactly up to Snake's standards and I had a knife that fit into the weapon a lot better, it would be comfortable, and the whole idea of still maintaining a stance and switching to your knife sounds really good in theory. There's a couple issues, and I'm going to break that down right now. The first major issue is if I'm shooting and I go bang, bang, and then I need to reload, I take out the magazine and then I go for mags. And while I'm messing around down here, if I am, under pressure, this knife, I might nick myself. If I have my ammunition higher up and I'm reaching, I can cut my equipment. I can cut myself. If I'm trying to get ammunition that's lower on my hip, I could cut my leg. If it's in front here, I could cut closer to my crotch. If I'm going in the back here, I could cut my back, my equipment, myself. It's a very easy way to injure yourself. Another issue is that if you're bringing in your pistol close because you're trying to come around a wall and someone bumps into you or you stumble or something like that happens, the knife gets pushed into you. It's a hazard to stab yourself with the knife. Even if the knife was shorter, that would still be an issue. It limits your stances. If I try to do center axis relock like this, which is something we're going to talk about a lot later, I could cut my arm. And if you get cut here on your arm, let me put it this way, I would rather take a stab to my stomach before I allow myself to get cut anywhere on my arm. The third major issue with this, I'm not going to get too into actual throwdowns and CQC techniques because that's a topic for another day, and I'd rather have someone helping me a space that's a little bit more conducive to movement to actually show these moves. But one thing we can talk about here is that Snake also uses this stance while he's grabbing people. So for example, while he's coming up behind someone, he'll use the hand where he has the pistol in it to grab their arm. And then he'll hook his arm around their neck like this. Now, remember what I said in the last video where we did the basics of striking, how we are predators and we function with everything that's in front of us? If someone's grabbing me and their knife is here pointed away from me and their pistol is on my arm and they don't have a very good grip, both of their weapons are not pointed at me, they're pointed in front of me. That, if I am really scared for my life and in that situation, I don't think there's any way out, I would be a lot more inclined to try to grab that pistol or push that knife away from me. Versus if Snake were to come and grab someone like this. I know he does this basically when he's doing the interrogation and holds it right up to their neck. That, I would not want to fight if I have a blade by my neck like this, because one small movement and I am dead. So I would be incredibly cooperative. However, if the knife is pointed away from me, I'd be much more inclined to try to take control of that. Same thing goes for the pistol. If the pistol is in front of me, I'd be much more inclined to try to grab that and take control of that weapon and make sure the person can't use it against me. Now, of course, the last issue is when Snake is running around with his pistol. Now, while he's doing his sneaky walk, having the pistol in a safe direction, keeping both weapons at the ready, this is all fine and good. However, when he's running, he's swinging that pistol uncontrollably along with that knife. This is an accident waiting to happen. I'll either shoot myself or something I don't mean to. And swinging a knife like this while I'm running is an easy way to cut myself. And in a situation like Snake Eater, where you're in charge of taking care of yourself, patching yourself out, you don't have anyone else there as support, you want to minimize as much risk to yourself as possible. So this entire stance, while I can see why it seems cool in theory, is just not a good idea. There's too many ways that you can hurt yourself.
Forget it. This is way too gross. Who would even think of doing something so disgusting?
We're not done though, because in Metal Gear Solid 4, Snake continues this, but he tries to do it with a rifle. And right off the bat, you can see a problem here. The knife, even if it was shorter, depending on my grip, could damage the magazine or stop me from manipulating the rifle in the ways that I need to. And again, as I was lowering it, I stabbed my own equipment. I stabbed myself. I'm being pushed back or I stumble over, I could cut myself. Now, I had someone actually comment on one of the posts I put earlier today, wouldn't it be feasible to just keep the actual blade on your weapon? And yes, it would. Not so much on a pistol, but if you had a bayonet on your rifle, people have been using bayonets since guns were invented. That is very practical. Aside from that, onto the topic of the actual CQC moves that Snake in Metal Gear Solid 4 uses with the rifle, he tries to cut in and use the butt of his rifle to throw people down. Thing is, if this is being pushed against me, yes, this is uncomfortable, but it's a lot easier to push away. You don't really get the right leverage with this, and there's too much space. I mean, if I have a guy up against a wall and I'm pushing him like this and I'm keeping my body closer, that's still not something I want to do. If I have a weapon system, I want to keep muzzle control, and I want to make sure the enemy can't reach the parts of the weapon that I need to make it function, especially in closer ranges. In regards to CQC that you could do with a rifle, what is actually used by a lot of people that have military service is when they're going in and they're clearing houses and they have someone there that is not necessarily a registered threat but is becoming aggressive. A lot of soldiers, US soldiers that were stationed in Iraq, Afghanistan, what they'll do is that they'll use the actual muzzle of their rifle and they'll jab it into them. That jab to the chest is kind of like a little poke away. It's a de-escalation of, it stops their forward angry momentum, And by doing this, I'm not compromising my control of the weapon system. I'm not giving them access to parts that are important. Hell, even doing something like this is a lot more practical than coming in like this with the rifle. As a side note, some cool rifle facts for you. There's this thing called length of pull, and Snake and another character that we're going to be talking about in a second tend to have the length of their AR stocks be really far back. Now, some people say this is a lot more comfortable for long-range shooting, and stuff like that. I don't do a lot of long-range shooting. A lot of the training I've received is for close quarters. And generally, for the sake of this video, I think keeping your weapon system closer in, having less of a length of pull, having everything closer to you when I'm coming around corners, it's not as far from me, it's not as easy for people to grab. So yeah, less length of pull tends to be better for me. That's kind of my personal taste thing. But when we're talking about CQB or CQC, being able to control your weapon systems and keep it close is kind of crucial. So, on that note, One game that showcases melee combat while manipulating a weapon system or handling a weapon system properly, much better than Metal Gear Solid 3 or 4, would be Resident Evil 4. In Resident Evil 4, Leon is using his knife, he's using his handgun, he's using rifles. However, his handling of those weapons is much better than Snake's in either Metal Gear Solid 3 or 4. So let's talk in a couple ways of the things that Leon does right. Now, the first thing is Leon's basic weapon handling. It doesn't matter if he's running, it doesn't matter if he's in combat, it doesn't matter if he's huffing and puffing after combat. He keeps his weapon pointed down towards the ground or downrange. Leon always has control. It's always maneuvering from the side, here. Sometimes he'll do this. That's a big no-no at a lot of shooting ranges, and it's an easy way to get yourself thrown out. But for the most part, when he's moving around, doesn't matter if he's rolling, he has muzzle control. He's making sure he's not pointing his gun at anything he's not willing to shoot at any time. Even when he's reloading, he tends to keep his weapon pointed outwards. Even if he has to tilt it to do his reloads or whatever, it's there. Now, Leon will do what's called center axis relock, which is, if you've noticed, in the game, sometimes he'll pull the pistol in and fire at extreme close ranges. Now, what this is for is not necessarily to aim down your sights. However, when you're in a situation where you're trying to, get past a wall, or if you're in a situation very similar to Resident Evil, or very similar to a lot of self-defense situations actually, where you're outnumbered and people are trying to come at you, stab you, pull you apart, grab your weapon, it might be a better idea to hold your weapon system closer into you, so again, you have more control of it. This isn't something you can go to a shooting range and be like, oh yeah, I'm John Wick, I'm gonna look down the sights, and I'm gonna be perfect. You're not gonna look at your sights, you're not gonna control your pistol very well like this. However, when you're doing this, it's because some kind of threat or obstacle is at point blank range, and you either need to get around it, or you need to fire as someone's coming into you and they're trying to grab you and attack you, and you don't wanna have your arms fully extended outwards where they can grab your weapon off of you. Now, you'll notice that Leon never uses his pistol and knife at the same time, even when he's using them in conjunction. Leon, I think, has his knife. By the way, none of my gear is legit. This is all just toys and random cheap airsoft stuff that I use for cosplay and stuff. So don't go into the comments asking me about gear tips and stuff like that with what I'm wearing. We'll talk about that in another video. But for now, this is just for the sake of demonstration of these weapon handling techniques when melee combat may be involved. But yeah, Leon has his knife in a way where he can grab it with his right hand fairly easily. You'll notice that Leon's grip changes depending on what he's doing. This is the way it was taught to me, standard grip. This is called advanced grip. Now, advanced grip, you'll see in a lot of movies looking cool and stuff. This is mostly for making sure you have a stronger grip on your blade. It's harder to knock out of you, harder to grab out of your hand, and you'll notice Leon uses it for when he's getting those stabs up close on ganados. Now, the reason why he switches his hand like this with the blade is because there's a lot of bones in the neck. There just could be something that hits the blade and sends it back and cuts his hand. So you get that feedback. And when you're holding it like this, it's a lot harder to stop that from happening. But with advanced grip, you have a tighter grip. You can come in for the harder stab, and even if you hit something rough, your hand is more likely to move back with the knife or power through rather than yourself getting cut. Because again, in a situation like Resident Evil, you don't want whatever is inside these biohazards getting into your bloodstream. But yeah, the majority of the time when Leon is fighting or dueling, he'll be holding his knife with a proper standard grip. Now, this is good because it gives you more range and more control. Going back to Snake Eater, when you equip the knife on its own, Snake actually does proper form with it, where I believe it's a Krav Maga philosophy where you imagine a little bit of a box, and what you do is that you move from the edges of the box, right? And you can choose how big that box is. The smaller the box, the quicker your moves, right? Bigger the box, the more powerful your slashes can be, and if you need to stab, you go like that. So whenever Leon's fighting Krauser or doing parries, he'll do that. Another little detail I really like from Resident Evil 4 is that Leon will sometimes grab his wrist when doing certain parries. Now, when hard metal objects are hitting against the blade, again, in this stance, it's easier for the blade to fly out of your hand. So giving yourself a little bit additional support if you know you're about to take an impact is a cool idea. So while a lot of the parries in Resident Evil 4 may not be too realistic, there's some realistic stuff going on with what Leon is doing. And Capcom really did their research on this, so I think that's really cool. Another really good thing that Leon does, unlike Snake, is that when he's going for his grabs or, his suplexes and all that kind of stuff, he doesn't have his gun in his hand. So he can get a proper grip and go in. Because again, if you have your weapon system out, if you have a gun out, it's because you're planning to shoot. It's because you're planning to stop someone from killing you by shooting them. So if you try to go around and get like a grip on someone while you still have a gun in your hands, they could grab it, compromise, accidentally shoot. It's not a good idea. So Leon puts away his gun when he's not going to do it.
No puedo caminar.
But something cool that happens in Resident Evil 4 while Leon has his gun out is that the melee moves he does, specifically the kicks, some of them actually work pretty well with the idea of muzzle control. Now, I'm going to be cutting to some other footage where the audio quality was really bad, but I had a little bit more range of movement so I could show. But basically, while you're throwing push kicks, or if you're going for like a side kick, Leon always keeps that gun pointed away from himself or his leg. Leon will throw kicks, and when he's throwing those kicks, he has his weapon at his side here. If he's throwing, a side kick, his weapon's coming to this side here with him. He's reaching out, coming back in. I have a little bit of an issue when Leon's doing like the spin kicks, because when you're spinning around and doing stuff, it's a little harder to keep control of where your weapon is pointed. However, when he's doing those like push kicks, or when he's doing those side kicks, it's good. Also, Leon is the other character that when he has the AR equipped, he has the stock out like this. Again, length of pull, I don't like long lengths of pull, and specifically for Resident Evil, having your weapon system closer in with you, it's a lot easier to manipulate, it's a lot easier to pull back if you have to do it. You can still get into your iron sights. In fact, I find it easier to get into my iron sights. This is just generally the better thing for me. Like this, Ganados would easily be able to grab this out of Leon's hand. I find it a little trickier to do reloads like this because things are further away. So yeah, I don't like length of pull. And yeah, that's it. That's the video. I know you guys were fine. I know the audio here isn't necessarily ideal, but the last place I did it, it was really bad. So what's up, guys? It's Pliskin here, and if you can hear me, I'll probably keep the audio, but there's a good chance I'm gonna block it out. Either way, this is pretty much where I've lived for the past couple of years. I'm a basement gym rat. I don't know. I don't mind if my videos are flawed, but I want to know I'm putting out the best that I physically can at a given moment for you guys. So I hope you enjoyed this. If you want to see more content like this, please let me know. If there's something I said that wasn't tactically viable, please explain why in the comments. And yeah, this has been Pliskin. Over and out.
This is Solid Snake. Hey, subscribe to Pliskin Boy. God damn it.
You heard him.